welcome back to our third episode of Hospo Happy Hour, proudly brought to you by Hospo For Life and Warner's Distillery. We have a massive show lined up for you all today, and we are discussing how to manage stress in difficult times. We will also be joined by Andy Young, the editor of TheShout and BARS&clubs for Last Drinks today. Let's get the first round rolling. So up for the first round today, we have Ben Paris. Ben is a registered psychologist and has been working for People Sense by Altius Group for the past 9 years. He provides therapy for individuals and couples for a range of issues, as well as managing the National Employee Assistance Partnerships. As a young adult, Ben also worked in the hospitality industry in bars and cafes as a casual employee. How are you, Ben?
I'm well, thanks, Liam. Thanks for the chance to come on board and have a chat to yourself about stress today.
No, it's great to have you on. So tell me, how can our viewers manage stress in difficult times and in the face of adversity?
Yeah, look, certainly a relevant topic at the moment, given what's going on. I think the first thing we need to do in understanding how to manage stress is really understand what is stress, because it is a term that we throw around, and sometimes you'll hear people call or refer to as stress and anxiety. Stress is really specifically your body's response to the demands placed upon it. And psychological stress occurs when a person sees their environment or the situation they're in is incredibly taxing, and it could possibly exceed their own ability to cope or their own internal resources. I'm sure you can relate to that, given the industry you're working in, Liam.
Oh, certainly can. It's massive.
I remember working as a supervisor pulling beers in my hometown. We had to do a fortnightly stock take, and in addition to still running the bar, and the additional pressure that placed on me for that night, I remember feeling very snappy. My stress just would spike. I'd be really frustrated, and I'd even withdraw socially from my colleagues. So it's a phenomenon that's hard to manage.
Yeah, no, it certainly is.
It's important we recognise that stress is a normal response, though, and it's an understandable reaction to the situation that you're finding yourself in. It relates to particular hormones in your body. So we're talking about adrenaline and cortisol. And you can find a range of psychological symptoms that you experience when you are highly stressed, things like worry or irritability, restlessness, not being able to sit still, even insomnia, sleeping problems. And some people at the extreme end will feel a sense of dread or even feel like they're on the verge of panic.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. All of those symptoms are just classic of a hospo's life. I think, we none of us get enough sleep, and that stress levels are always high, especially in the kitchen or busy venues, and that customers can place, a lot of added stress onto us being in service roles as well. So yeah, definitely can.
It's a really interesting point you make around control. We get these pressures placed on us rather than necessarily feeling that we have control over those pressures. And we will touch on that very, very shortly, Liam. So it's important to know that stress is unavoidable, but we can use it to motivate us and help us to perform. And you'll see on the screen, there's the inverted U, which is referred to as the curve of arousal or the curve of stress. And we can see that if we're keeping our stress levels around about that 4 to 6 out of 10, our performance spikes. So stress can be a really useful phenomenon. If it's creeping up to 7, 8, 9 out of 10, we call that the distress zone, and that can be where our performance is impaired. Similarly, if the stress is at a 0, 1 or 2, that's when we're calm. We're not needing to perform, but if we're in that calm point when we've got to do something that's quite difficult, you might find the performance just isn't there.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting you say that, and that sometimes I've found in my career, and that the actual calmer that I am, and that the actual better things actually work, and that elevated stress levels, I think there's definitely a fine line, especially in a chef's life, between, being calm or overstressed, and that little bit of stress sometimes can push you to perform a lot better.
Sure.
All
So,
right.
so if we're looking at stress as unavoidable, it's a normal part of life, that really leaves us with the option of managing it better.
Yeah.
So the question would be, how can we manage our psychological stress and use it to our advantage?
Yeah.
We know that stress has a significant link with how we are perceiving the situation. So
Yeah.
it's what judgment we're making about the situation or how we are explaining it to ourselves.
Yeah.
And our self explanation can be either optimistic or pessimistic. I
Yeah.
can see this stress as a growth opportunity, or I could see it as a burden that I've got to push through.
Yeah.
And the way we explain it has a really powerful impact on how we cope with the stress.
Yeah.
So, if we can, we want to aim for an optimistic explanatory style, which is
Yeah.
a really almost a complex way of describing just being more optimistic about the situation. And we can
Yeah.
break that down into the 3 P's of stress management.
Yeah.
The first P relates to pervasiveness.
Yeah.
So this is uh, refers to a setback being spread across all aspects of life. It's not just
Yeah.
a small stress. This is life sucks. So an example of that might be that we say to ourselves, nothing is going right. Life just sucks. This is
Yeah.
a universal stressor. That's a very pessimistic way of explaining the stress, and it does make it harder for us to cope with it.
Yeah.
The other side to that would be being more specific about the stress. So we
Yeah.
could choose to say to ourselves, look, I'm out of work at the moment, but I still have my health. I've still got my family.
Yeah.
My dog's still here with me. My mates are all around me. Or any other positive aspect of life, so that we're separating the stressor from things that are going well.
Yes.
The more we can focus on containing that stress and not letting it bleed out into every area of life, the better we are equipped to cope with it.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Second P, sorry, Liam, you go.
no, you're a good Ben. Carry on.
So, second P, we're looking at permanence of the stressor. And this is one that you might have picked up on, at least over here in Perth. There's a lot of ads on the television of celebrities or B grade TV stars talking about this is temporary. We will get through this.
Yeah.
And there is a science behind that, because optimistic people, or those that manage stress better, will see bad events as temporary.
Yeah.
Whereas the ones that struggle with the stress are the ones that see it as permanent. So, for
Yeah.
example, a pessimist or someone that might struggle with the stress would say, my cafe will never reopen. We're
Yeah.
shut for good. As opposed to someone that sees the stressor as temporary, they might say or explain the stress as, I don't have work for now, but this won't last forever and I will get through.
Yeah.
Slight differences in the way you're explaining it to yourself have a massive impact on how much that stress impacts on you.
Yeah. No, I see that. I see that, especially at the moment, and that I think if we adopted um, that mindset that, hey, this is never going to happen again, I think we'd all be in a very serious state of depression, and that. But it's definitely, it is only, we know it's only temporary, and yeah, it's hard. It's hard at the moment, obviously for a massive percent of our industry, but the key message that we have been trying to really push through the last few days is it is temporary and things will come back. We can't say when, but they are going to come back. And I really like your point um, about what we have got as well. That's another key that we've been discussing over the last 3 days, and that is being grateful for what we do have now, and seeing that as a positive, and that rather than just looking at the negatives of everything that's going on.
Exactly. I think you've hit the nail, Liam. If we're looking at the third P, so another way of being optimistic in explanatory style, we find that pessimists internalize the failure, or they blame themselves for that particular setback. So, for example, it's my fault the bar's closed. I didn't work hard enough. I didn't plan enough, or I wasn't a good enough business person to keep it afloat. That's a really pessimistic way of explaining the setback. An optimist may say, the bar closed because of COVID restrictions. It wasn't my fault. I did all I could.
Yeah.
Again, a slight difference in the way we're explaining the stressor or the setback has
Yeah.
a massive impact on how much it concerns us.
Yeah, definitely does.
So I think in summary, if we're looking at the 3 Ps, firstly, we want to avoid seeing crises or stressful events as unbearable or permanent problems. We want to keep a long-term perspective and consider that stressful events or consider an event within the broader context of things that are going well, and maintain that hopeful and optimistic outlook, expecting good things to happen. These are within our control, and the more you practice an optimistic explanatory style, the better you become at it. Liam, if you're trying to be perfect, it's not going to happen. I've never met a perfect person, but the more you practice these little habits, the better you become at them. Practice makes progress.
Oh, it definitely does. Definitely does.
There's another element of stress management from a psychological perspective, and it refers to this concept of locus of control. We all like to feel in control, and we know that the more control we have, the better we manage our stress. The current situation has been largely out of our control, and that is a big part of why people are struggling so much with the impact that COVID-19 has had. There are still things that we can do, areas we can direct our resources into to help us better manage the stress. And you can see on the slide that there's a diagram. I like to call this the desert. And if you're looking at the picture of a desert, you'll notice that there's this small circle in the middle of fertile soil. So if we were to direct our resources, say in this example, our water, to the desert, to the sand in the outer circle, we're not going to grow much. We're not going to reap the fruits of our labor. Whereas if we were to direct our resources into the center circle, the part that we can actually affect some change, we're much more likely to affect an improvement and feel more in control of the situation. So our goal is really to have a sense that I'm in control of what's happening. I've got choices, and if we can achieve that, we're going to feel less stressed. I'll give you an example. It's a pretty interesting complex type of a concept to grasp. For example, financial stress. I can't control that my cafe is closed down. If I direct my mental energy, my physical energy into purely worrying that my cafe is closed down, I'm not going to make any change. All it's going to do is make me feel more stressed. But if I'm targeted with the energy, if I direct my psychological energy, my mental energy, my time and my finances into things I can control, we're going to be doing much better. So for example, I could sell some stuff on eBay, or I could ask my parents for a loan. I could speak to the bank about a mortgage hold, explore Centrelink options, apply for other jobs. If I direct my energy into these things I can control, we are going to manage the stress better.
No, I totally get you there.
I had another thought came to me. I do my best thinking in the showers in the morning, Liam. I don't know about yourself, but I know in hospitality there's this real sense of social connectedness, and social isolation now is a big problem for the industry. People that are used to working around lots and lots of people are suddenly finding themselves somewhat alone. So if you were to direct your mental energy into purely just feeling sad that you can't speak to people, it's going to be wasted energy. But if we direct that resource into reaching out to friends, linking in with them, whether it's through texting, group messaging, or video calling, you're going to find that you feel more in control, you have more choices, and again, the stress will reduce. We just worked on a Friday virtual drinks for the last couple of weeks in our organisation, and it's working really well, Liam, so I can definitely attest to that.
So tell us more about this circle on the right hand side here.
So what we find is the more we direct our resources into the area of control, that space grows. So we see that we start to see more opportunities in life to get control. It's almost like it has a snowballing effect. The more we start to water this part that we can control, the bigger it gets. And with that, we find that stress does reduce. And there's some pretty simple steps that you can take.
No, that's some really good advice on the topic. I definitely think our viewers will gain a lot from that. Control's a big one for us in hospitality, and you know, being in control of, you know, time, or, you know, how quick something's going out, or how quick something's cooking, or, you know, things you can't control, you know, a supplier not turning up on time and you need it. and that like it really affects people in different ways.
And a good example, Liam, if you were to sit there and crying into your hands that the supplier hasn't showed up, you're not going to get anywhere. People's meals aren't still going to be made. Whereas if we start to look at, well, what can I do about it? Can I do half salads? Can I use rocket instead of the iceberg? There's solutions that are within our control. The stress does reduce.
I've one of my key areas, which as a restaurant chef before I started my company, and still do the same thing, and that now when I pick up, but the delivery aspect and the supply chain, and that they are there to support you, and that and some have never got past the fact, oh, my delivery's late, like and then everything else goes out the window. Like they've been stuck in traffic, especially in Sydney during peak hour, and that you want your delivery at 7 a.m. Some days you're not going to get it till 10, and that so it can really elevate things for some people, and those stress levels really get quite high, and then the delivery man's the one to cop it, and that when they get there, which is really unfortunate. And that, but no, it's definitely we can control those things to an extent, and yeah, that's some great advice.
I think the more we acknowledge that there are parts out of our control, and then direct our energy into things we can control, the more we're going to feel empowered and improve your stress levels. It's a pretty basic principle.
Yeah, no, that's some excellent advice, Ben, and but I think for the first round today, really hit the nail on the head with those points. I have to say thanks for sharing your knowledge. I'll be catching up with you again in our next segment, which is your shout. And yeah, thanks for being on Hospo Happy Hour today, Ben.
My absolute pleasure, Liam. We'll speak soon.
Will do. Thanks very much. Welcome back to your shout. We've had some thought-provoking questions come through from the viewers at home overnight. If you as the viewer, as we say every day, if you have a question that you need to be answered, you can contact us at info@hospoforlife.com.au or just direct message us through Facebook. Our first question that's come in for today, and we've got Ben back from Altius to explain your questions today. Our first one's from a viewer in Victoria. What do I do if a colleague is displaying symptoms of mental illness, but I'm unsure if they would open up to me if I asked? What is a gentle way to start the conversation?
Yeah, look, good question, Liam. And having someone check in on us can actually motivate us to seek help. So engaging with an individual that you're worried about could actually be a fantastic, helpful experience for them. Very rarely is someone going to turn around and yell and scream at you for asking how they are. Yeah. But there is some ways that are better to go about it than possibly others. Yeah. Usually I'd recommend to my clients that they start with an observation. Yeah. So whether that's an emotion or a behavior, just starting with the observation, note your concern and asking if that person's okay. So in practice, that would look like, hey, I've noticed that you've been a bit unhappy lately and I'm worried. Are you okay?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a very simple message, but it's such a powerful one too. Yeah.
Very much so. I think you've got to pick your time and place, though. You don't want to be doing this right at the end of your shift when all they want to do is get out of there. You've got to make sure it's a suitable location that's private, because you might find that this person opens up. And if they start, you don't want to cut them off. And above all, be prepared to listen. Yeah. Nothing worse than asking the question. Someone says, I'm not coping. And then you say, well, you should hear about my problems. So withhold your judgment and just engage in the art of listening. Yeah, that's some great advice. I've also got another one here, which I think is a brilliant question. It's come through from a venue manager in Brisbane. As a manager, how can I be more aware of mental health issues across our organisation? And what are some things to look out for? Okay. And, again, another good question. I think the starting point for most people would be to increase your own understanding of mental health issues, so signs and symptoms and particular conditions, by doing a bit of your own research. So I would start with increasing your own understanding. Signs and symptoms. What is anxiety? What is depression? What are the symptoms of stress? There are actually some really useful resources on the People Sense by Altius website. If people do want to log in, they're free for the public, and you can even do some self-help if you wanted to. So that's really where I would start. In terms of what to look out for specifically. As a general rule, I encourage people to pay attention to any significant change. So if you know someone that's normally a bubbly, happy person, and then suddenly they've just become quiet and withdrawn, that is a warning sign. If you know someone that's normally quite calm and chilled, and suddenly they're really snappy and agitated, again, that's a significant change, and it could prompt you to ask the question.
Yeah, no, good advice, Ben. The last question for your shout today is from Queensland. What are some ways I can motivate my team in the workplace?
Oh, there you go. How much time do you have, Liam? Look, factors that motivate individuals are really personal. People can be driven by a range of internal and external factors. So it's not a one-size-fits-all scenario. There are some general things you can do, like praising the right behaviours. When you see someone that's showing initiative, rewarding them for that, particularly if you see someone that's put in a lot of effort. And my general rule is reward effort, not skill. You can have the most highly skilled people on board, but if they're not motivated and driven, they're really going to be hard to get performance out of. You can also model your own motivated behaviour, so people will pick up on how you're working and your own work ethic, and may come on board with that. But above all, and it sounds really simple, I would encourage you to sit down with each individual as a manager and ask what motivates them. Why are they there? What are you working for? Is it the money? Is it the social connection? Is it the experience? And use that information to guide you in terms of how you would direct your motivation work with them moving forward.
No, that's some brilliant advice. Now, that's your shout for Wednesday. And we look forward to catching you all again tomorrow. If you have your questions, send them through, and we will have our very qualified team answer them on the show. You can contact us at info@Hospo For Life, or send us a direct message, and we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Thanks very much, Ben.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So we're at that time again where we call Last Drinks, and our next guest has an extensive career in journalism and is the editor of TheShout and BARS&clubs publications, which bring you all the latest news from across the hotel, bar and liquor industry here in Australia. It is with great pleasure to welcome to Hospo Happy Hour, Andrew Young. How's your day been, Andrew?
Good, thanks, Liam. Yeah, been really good so far. Just getting ready for a new Shout newsletter to go out. Well, just should be going out now. So yeah, it's been a good morning so far. Yourself?
Oh, good stuff. Yeah, I'm having a good day so far. So I want to ask you a question. You started your career as a sports journalist. Yeah. You've previously worked for The Sun and Daily Mail newspapers in the UK, and 7 News here in Australia as well, before making the move to editor of TheShout. Can you tell our viewers why you chose your genre of news, and how you're working at TheShout solidified your interest in the hospitality industry?
Sure. So having done my time with news and sport, it was particularly on news. I did that for about 10 years, and it's at times it's quite confronting to kind of deal with those some big major news events, a bit like we're in at the moment. But often, you see the worst of humanity, and you've got to just kind of report on that. And I just it was coming to the end of my time of really feeling the passion for that. And I was in the UK at the time, and I knew I'd been moving back to Australia, and I wanted to kind of expand my writing capabilities and look at somewhere outside of news, and that kind of put me in towards business to business writing and getting some kind of commercial exposure as well. And then thankfully that's where the drinks business came in. And they were looking for somebody like me with that sort of news background, and I was looking for somebody like them, really, who was offering something a little bit different. So So I joined them and loved it straight away. I just was taken by the passion of people in the industry, being able to write about something different, write about really about the best of humanity. I touched on the list before, right about the best of people, and the last 5 years at the Shout have really enabled me to do that. I've you speak to restaurant owners, bar owners. I mean, listening to Sven yesterday, you can hear the passion in what he does and what he loves about hospitality. And that's my job, to speak to these people, and far out it's amazing. And it's the same when you're speaking to brewers, to winemakers, distillers. This is their life, this is their passion, and that passion is I was going to say that passion is infectious. That's probably not the right word to use at the moment. That passion is inspiring, and so that's what I love about what I do. Love about the Shout and Bars and Clubs. You get to just experience that passion and talk to people about what they love, and then that's my job to try and communicate that through writing to the trade.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. How do you feel the current restrictions in place due to COVID have affected the bar and club scene, and obviously a lot of staff and employees of these venues?
I can't imagine. Well, I suppose I can. I can't really imagine just how tough it must be for those guys at the moment. This is not just losing your job. I think a lot of us have experienced that, and that's tough enough. But this is losing your industry. I guess the real tough bit is that you can't go out and meet your support network and talk to them and have them help you through it in that sort of physical contact. One of the things we talk about with the industry is the importance of hospitality, of being social, of being able to get out with a group of friends, and that's it's so tough to have that taken away. I mean, I can't imagine. I would really struggle if somebody said to me, right, you can't write anymore. And you think about the speed that this came through as well. I think it was on a Thursday that we were told we can't have gatherings of more than 100 people. And I know my team and the office and everybody around me were kind of like, that's going to be tricky. And then I think it was on Sunday we were told, right, midday tomorrow it's all shutting down. So it just came so quickly. And as I say, Sven was talking about hospitality and what hospitality means, and providing people with experience, and as he said, having people who give a fuck, and people who love doing that, who they're creative people who want to give people a good time and who enjoy that social interaction, and every aspect of that has been taken away. So that must be incredibly tough for them. That's one of the reasons why I've really sort of taken with that, and Bridie, who I work with on Bars and Clubs, put together a resource page for bartenders to sort of talk about the things that they can do to help during this time, with like courses and some of the social groups to hang out. It's so tough at the moment. Everybody's doing it really tough. So I feel that it's the job of the media to try and to help people. We can't deliver only good news, unfortunately, in the moment, but what we can do is try and help people as much as possible through this dark time.
I know across my local area, and that a few of the local bars and cocktail bars around the North Shore in Sydney have started doing takeaway cocktails and that, just to try and make ends meet still. And there's a few of them doing it really well, and there's a few others which just hasn't unfortunately worked. The ones which have food and drink, I think are doing a lot better than the ones which are just it's just alcohol service only. Have you seen a spike in sales in different areas of the industry, or any really low points?
I think we had a point about maybe 10 days, 2 weeks ago, where there was a little touch of panic buying in the off-premise. And the off-prem acted really quickly. There's Retail Drinks Australia and over in WA, Liquor Stores Association, they acted really quickly to bring in restrictions and to kind of just curb panic buying. and that's done a really good job, and it's kind of mellowed things out a little bit. And I think the message is coming through that the bottle shops are seen as an essential service. So, so we don't have to panic. But that we saw that spike, and then that subsequently in the week after kind of led to a bit of a drop. But I think I haven't really noticed. I haven't managed to speak to anybody yet in terms of what specifically is really working for them. I think you're right. Doing the package, doing the kind of the food and drink together options, giving people a night out indoors. Yeah. Giving them everything to give them that night out in one place is what I think works best. Yeah. We're seeing a lot of places, you know, I won't say thankfully, but moving away from using certain delivery companies who may put a strain on some of their cash flow. I think that's the diplomatic way of putting that. And using definitely. And using their staff to kind of help with delivery and keeping people employed through that. I spoke to the guys at Applejack, and you know, they shut down their business straight away. And through JobKeeper now, they're starting to bring the business out of hibernation and look at what they can do to keep people employed or to get people re-employed, keep them working and keep them going. I think. Yeah, you know, it's
keeping their employees working at least.
Exactly, mate. I think that's the people that I've spoke to, and you know, Sven touched on it yesterday. They've closed, and you know, he's worried about what will be on the other side and who will be on the other side. So I think, but as I said, the guys at Applejack are really trying to kind of open up the business again and keep people going, keep their staff employed, and really kind of keep morale as much as you can through this.
Yeah, definitely. How do you think the Australian hotel, bar and club aspect of the industry will bounce back when the restrictions are lifted?
I mean, that's the big question. I think
I'm looking into a crystal ball.
Yeah, I think Sven touched on this yesterday, and it certainly seems that the hospitality industry, bars, cafes, restaurants, will be one of the last businesses to open. But I think they're probably the one that most Australians want to have open. And I've spoken to people, and one of the things that keeps coming up, and it's a fun little line that people have. It's like the party at the end of this, the end of the war party, is going to be epic. And I think I'm hoping that it will be, and I hope that we've got some really smart operators, some really good smart people running a lot of venues who are understanding what it takes to furlough the business, to kind of make sure that they've got cash at the end of it to reopen and to be there for people. We've seen companies like the big companies like Lion, CUB, and I did a story yesterday, Paramount Liquor. They're buying back the booze from venues to help with cash flow. You know, just to give venues the option to have some cash coming in instead of it just be money going out. Yeah. But I'm hopeful that the industry will be strong. That there will be the capacity to open up. I put my trust in these operators, in people like Sven, Mikey Enright, you know, Tash and the guys down in Melbourne. They know what they're doing, and I think and you look at the big operators, the Hotels Association, they're doing what they can to really just to make the most of the government support. I mean, the government is also trying to help. We've got a 6-month moratorium on rent evictions. Oh, that's got to be great. And if the advice is to speak to landlords and to get your rent down, try and get your utility bills down, just try and minimise the amount of money that you're spending, make the most of job keepers, keep your staff around and keep them going. It's one of the, again, we've done an initiative with food and beverage media called Stronger Together. And that was about trying to sort of help venues understand that there is hope, if you like, and sort of giving them news about what the government initiatives are, what the partners are doing to really kind of help them, and just really kind of help them to understand that, I mean, we're there to support them, but I think the wider community is there to support the industry as well, and we'll be there at the other side.
Yeah, no, I have to say, it's been great, the incentives that the government's brought in. There's some which, you know, it's really benefited. I feel for a couple of people I know still with their landlords. Their landlords are not contacting, and that, so there's been no correspondence. So it's made it really difficult. They haven't known whether to you know, keep paying full rent, or, you know, just pay a little bit, or it's been really tough for their business. But you know, they care about their employees, and they want to keep their employees in work. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's the difficult thing. Like, it's got to be so tough at the moment. Like, you're caring about your employees and everybody, and you have that passion for the industry, and you care about what you do.
Yeah.
But you've got a business to run, and you've got no business to run that business with. It's such a challenging time at the moment, but to kind of just be able to have some support and advice, to know it's there, and you know, to see what you can do, and get that government help. I think, you know, if people are having difficulty with their landlords, I don't think that's going to last too long. I don't think the government is going to take that kind of stuff from landlords. They're not going to be standing for evictions, and at the end of the day, what do landlords want? You know, once the, you know, hospitality industry starts to reopen, they're going to want somebody in their venues. So, you know, it just doesn't make sense for people to kind of put their fingers in their ears and go, la 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 la, this isn't happening, this is real, and we've got to try and react and do what we can.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got another question for you. It's more of a personal one. How do you manage your stress levels in your personal life? What are some things you do to stay stress free, or what suggestions have you got for others in the industry to help maintain their mental health and keep their stress levels down?
Sure, but I think I was talking to my wife about this morning, just about mental health and stress, and we both kind of said, well, we've got 2 kids under 3, we can't afford to have any stress at the moment. They've got their own kind of stress. So, but I think for me, routine is very important to me, to manage my mental health. I kind of learned that through my background in news. I touched on it before. Like, you see the worst of humanity, and it can be you can see some quite confronting things as a news journalist, and you've got to be able to walk away from that almost, and separate yourself from that. It's very easy when there's big events going on to kind of spend all day working about it, and then get home and watch the news and just be completely absorbed, and end up dreaming about it, and it's just a 24-hour life. So I learned, for me, that the big thing was when I left the office, is just to kind of just like shrug it off, and spend my commute going home, spend that sort of half hour, 40 minutes going on that time going home, processing my day. What did I do right today? What did I do wrong today? What could I have done better? What did the people around me do that I thought was great? What can I do? And then once I've gone through that, start to spend a few minutes going, right, what are my priorities for tomorrow? Do a little list. I'm old school. I've got pen and paper, and all right, you know, I'll write lists, and I sort of put down what I think the important things for tomorrow are. And then I feel like, right, that's it. And I go, right, close my day off. And then when I walk in through the front door and the family's there, it's like, I'm ready for that. And I can do what I need to do on that side of things. So look, I think that's what's really helped me, and it's more difficult doing that in isolation. It's
big time.
You know, and so that for me is, I'm still doing that. At the end of the day, when I think, right, I'm switching off my computer now, I'll go for a bike ride, or I'll go into my garage and I'll throw some darts. I give myself that half hour to process my day, and then I can come back in and I can get on with my evening, with my family time.
Yeah.
You know, I try in the mornings. Just before we went into isolation, we got our sort of operations manager at work sent around an email just with suggestions on what to do when you're working from home, and one of the things was to try and keep your same routine. So I do the same thing in the morning. I get up with the boys, and I take one of them to daycare, and you know, I have a shower and I get dressed for work. I put a shirt on and then I sit down. I have a cup of tea and I sit down at my laptop and I get cracking.
Yeah.
And you know, apart from the fact that, you know, I've added into a routine having about 3 breakfasts and 2 lunches and a couple of afternoon teas that I probably wouldn't have if I was in the office.
Yeah.
But other than that, I try and keep it as same as possible, and that's really important.
I think
in terms of go on, mate.
Yeah, I think that's been the key message across all of our interviews so far this week is to stick to that routine, keep active, and, you know, take a little bit of time for yourself as well, just to, you know, process what's going on, or, you know, those thoughts which you're having, and do something for yourself each day, and really stick to that routine. Yeah, I think that's probably the best message.
And I think we've got to acknowledge that this is a really difficult time that we're going through, and it's very easy to have thoughts where you go, oh, far out, can't, you know, and sort of get down on yourself for struggling a little bit. But that's completely normal in this environment. In isolation, I touched on it before, of how important social interaction is, and we're not allowed to do that at the moment. So it's completely normal to have dark times, to struggle at the moment, and it's, you can't get down on yourself for that. That's more important if at any time then is to go and take half an hour, to go and do your walk. You know, we're permitted an hour of exercise a day. Go and do that, whatever that is. Just step away from wherever you are, and go and get some fresh air, and make sure you do that. It's very easy from my perspective to have the computer on all the time, and to, you know, to find yourself once the boys have gone to bed, kind of thing, I'll just check my emails. You know, you can't do that, because then you end up, you're seeing things, people are messaging, you start to think about what's going on, and all of a sudden you're back into a work day, and probably an hour and a half before you're going to go to bed, and it's just, then you end up lying in bed thinking about it, and it's a spiral, man. So I think we've got to allow ourselves time to separate and make sure that we have an evening. And that would be one of the things that I think has been great to see in this time, is just how people have done so many different things. Like we touched on you know, how pubs and bars are starting to do takeaway, and they're changing the business model there. But there's a lot of things for people in this industry to do right now through social media. You know, virtual tastings, you can do Friday drinks, face wines, all those kind of things. There's a lot of Facebook communities that you can get involved with, and just keep interacting. It's not the same, but it's as good as it's going to get at the moment. And there's a lot of fun stuff going on there. You know, there's some of these virtual tastings that are around at the moment. They're great fun, and, you know, just sit and have a drink with your friends. It's awesome. It's
a good way of keeping people together. Yeah. Well, that's actually all we've got time for on Last Drinks today. I'd like to thank you for joining us, Andy.
Thanks,
and sharing your thoughts with us. And we certainly wish you all the best in the coming months, and the whole hospitality industry and the bar industry. I think they all need that support and something to look forward to for the future.
We're here to do what we can to support this industry, mate. So we will keep on doing that. So stay safe. Thanks very much for your time. It's good to chat.
No, my pleasure. Thanks, Andy.
Cheers, Liam.
See ya.